So hello, good people of the internet. It is your boy Tommy Kelly. Sorry, I couldn't help it. It just was been in my mind. So it is Tommy Kelly, and this is the Tommy Kelly podcast. And in this episode, it is later than I usually record it. It's later in the evening here in I was going to say snowy Ireland, but it's actually pretty melted at the minute. But it was really, really snowy, and it was lovely, and it was great, and it was one of those times where you managed to be able to, sit by the fire and watch a horror film and look outside, and it was snowing and all. It was really nice. But now that's all gone, and it's just slush. So less romantic, but it is late at night here. Late at night. It's like just after 8 o'clock here. It's where I was 65. But it's later at night, and it's darker, and I have the house to myself, apart from Riggs the cat, who's sitting on top of my hard drives right beside me, keeping them lovely toasty warm, which is, I assume, really good for them. So, the first big bit of news that I want to talk about, before we get into the podcast proper, is that, it's pretty big news. It's pretty big news. Big news for me, less big news for most other people in the world, I would assume. But Tommy is going to be a daddy. That's even weird to say. But yes, my wife, Vanessa, is pregnant. And we have told all the family, and we have got the scans and all that kind of thing. So it's cool to tell people. But going to be a daddy, and Vanessa's going to be a mammy, and she's due September, early September. So that's the huge news that surrounds me at the minute, that I've been known about for a while, and couldn't obviously tell people because it's too early, and so many things can go wrong and all that stuff. So I'm absolutely delighted, I'm absolutely excited, and it's going to be great, it's going to be wonderful. Just so happy. And which brings me to the topic of this conversation, this thing where I talk at you for a while, and it's just some stuff that's been coming up in the meditation thing that we're doing through the Patreon thing, the journey, which is the year-long shadow working, trying to sort out all the crapness from our lives and deal with it. And so it seems very fitting that in the year that I do this kind of thing is the year that I'm going to be bringing some new life into the world. So it seems like no better time to get my shit together and sort myself out and than now. So let's get into some of the insights and stuff I've been getting from that. Right. So let's start by cracking open a can. Sadly, it's not a beer. It's my favourite Coke Zero. Yes, that really unhealthy thing that I'm a sucker for. So, in the journey, basically we're on month 2, and in the second month of it is all to do with trying to see where we're playing the victim, or, where we're coming up with excuses, external excuses or external reasons of blaming other things, outside forces, for things that are happening in our lives, which may or may not be our own fault or our own doing. And we're doing this by kind of playing a game that it's the solipsism game, that everything is under, taking the new age idea of the secret of the law of attraction, of all that to its full extent, of solipsism, where it's all your mind, everything's happening in your mind, or whatever. Now, with this, we're using a servitor, and I don't want to talk too much about the servitor because it is a closed system, obviously, and it is only for the group that is doing this. And I mean, anyone can join. You just have to sign up for the Patreon, and it comes as one of the rewards from that. It's not, what the whole Patreon is about. The Patreon is just for supporting me and the work I do, the YouTube videos, the podcasts, the blogs, all of that sort of stuff. So it's not that you're signing up to do the journey, you're signing up to help me, and the journey is one of the rewards. But one of the things I really disliked about Reiki, and which I'm going to enact and be a hypocrite about here, is that there was these kind of symbols or these extra bits that you could only get by paying money. So it was like, even if you were a Reiki master, but someone was attuned to a slightly different Reiki than you, they weren't allowed to share any of their stuff. And the only way they could share it is if you actually paid money. So, I really dislike that idea. But, having said that, I'm not going to talk too much about what the actual servitor is, because I don't want it to get, I want it to be in that closed system or whatever. It will come out and all that kind of thing, so it will be available for all at the end of the year and all that. So it's not in the same way that you can only ever get this by paying me money. You will eventually get all the things I do, I give away free. Eventually, it's just waiting around. But for the minute, while it's still in its infancy and while we're still working through it and all that, I'm going to skirt around some of the details. I'm not going to say what the servitor actually is, his name, or any of those kind of things. But this servitor in particular, and it's because there's a journeying element to this, to the journey. Yeah, so funny enough. And it's like the shamanic journey of, you can use drum beats and you use your active imagination and, you go places. And this servitor, for me, out of all the servitors I've kind of come across or created, from the 47s, the Four Devils, and all of those things, he's the most autonomous. And I think he's probably the most autonomous and has his own thing, because I was very aware of not having that in the 47s or having that in the Four Devils, because of this whole fear that people have of servitors or tulpas or, your secret invisible friend or whatever going bad. That this idea that's very prevalent in occult circles, that they go bad and can destroy your life or take over your life. So it was a big thing in creating them, because it was going to be so public and so open and so out there, was to make sure that the huge safeguard in that they can't do that, because that is not part of their nature. There are ideas that can be used in a certain way to pinpoint energy or to, funnel energy, or, these archetypical ideas, but they certainly don't have their own autonomy outside of the healer can only heal. It can't suddenly decide to be something else and take over your life. And in the way you hear stories about tulpas or servitors, again, I've said this a million times, not a million times, many times have I told you not to exaggerate, Tommy, a million times at least. But that the people who usually tell these stories of servitors going amok or ruining their lives or causing havoc, to me and in my experience, I can only speak of my own experience, obviously, are the people whose lives are already very chaotic and a bit messy and a bit all over the place. And it possibly is just more a reflection of that than servitors in general having this thing of, if they hang around long enough to become sentient. Now, all of that preamble as a precursor to the fact that I didn't do that with the servitors, and I don't intend to do it with any of the servitors of the journey, because I want this to be slightly more, not dangerous is the wrong word, I want it to be slightly more, what's the word, dangerous, no, it's not dangerous, I want it to be slightly more open to these kind of things, where you have to go with it more than you have to, I don't want the safety net, because you're working with a kind of a thing that is shadow energy, and it'd be all too easy to back away from that and not get it. Now, that's not to say there isn't any kind of safety net, and it's, you can, just, it can all go up, mentalness and all that kind of thing, because we spent the whole first month, working on discipline, getting our act together for what we're going to do, and working with a kind of a guide who is the safety net, so that can, part of the prayer to the guide or whatever is to only allow what you're able to deal with and to keep you away from harm and that kind of thing. So while the servitors themselves can have a lot more agency and, be able to be more effective in that way, in that they can change to reflect what you need in the way that the 47s can't, there still is the overall safety guide, or the net of your guide who at the beginning. So it's just a slightly different system, so it's not totally haphazard or whatever. It still has a cut-off point. So all of this to say that when I was doing the journeying today, and in other times, I've come across, it's the servitor that we use has more agency and has more of a personality than I've come across with any other servitor before. In the sense of, there's definitely a trickster energy to this, which I hadn't decided on, I hadn't programmed them that way, but it's like very prevalent and makes sense with the kind of victim thing and all that you have, in a sense, the best way to get a fool to see what he's doing is to let him persist in his folly, or whatever that exact cliche statement thing is. So, a trickster is perfect for that kind of, to let the fool persist in its folly until he finds, find his way out of it. And the feeling I get from the servitor is that he has access to knowledge that I don't. Now, whether that is a case of he has access to knowledge in my subconscious, or whether he has access to knowledge that is totally outside my realm of thoughts or knowledge, whatever, I don't know. I have to assume that it's all part of me, and that it's not an actual, separate entity, because I do think these are all aspects of our own mind. But then the question is, what is mind? What is all this? And, you could go down that rabbit hole if you want. So, drinking some Coke. Other soft drinks are available, of course. Not sponsored by Coke Zero. The revelation, or the kind of thing that I've been working through, and I knew none of this was going to be easy, and I knew it was going to be hard, and I knew it was going to be embarrassing, and I knew it was kind of going to be a lot of owning up to things that I don't want to own up or see. But I was also told at the outset, or got the feeling at the outset, I don't like people, I was told by, the sense came to me that the more I was able to lean into all of these things, the less pain it will actually be, and that most of the pain comes from friction of not trying to accept these things. So that the more I'm open to seeing my faults and being aware of them, and being okay with being at fault, the easier all of it will be, and the easier to let go. The more I resist it, the harder it will be. So, the kind of thing, again, because we're talking about victim playing and all that, and I have a history of victim thing, and I've talked about it on the blog a number of times, in that whole thing of that, it's coming through, as it comes, it's coming through in kind of ideas that life is made harder for me than it is for other people. And that there was this kind of a feeling that when I get in bad form, or things are going bad, simple things go wrong all around me. Not things big enough for you could be able to point and go, there's definitely something weird going on here, but small, insignificant things constantly happen around me, and to the point where everything takes longer to do, or you have to do everything twice. And like, if you're making coffee, the milk will spill, the water will spill, the coffee cup will break, something will drop on the ground. If you're recording a podcast, there'll be something wrong with your computer. There will be software issues, whatever. If you go outside to put something in the bin, other things will knock. So just that everything is harder to do, everything is just made. These little simple things all add up. All these small things add up, and it's just like a mass frustration. So you kind of feel that there was a sense as if there was some sort of malevolent demon kind of at the back, doing this, like poking fun. That kind of classical feeling of like a demon that you have that's just, it's getting its kicks by just torturing people, but in the really kind of simple and nothing grand, so that people could point and go, there's definitely something, there's a demon at me here, there's something, not that, just, chipping away ever so small, like the minor things, the minor pleasures a demon would have of just torturing someone with these kind of ubiquitous kind of small, terrible frustrations and annoyance. So that definitely happens around me. And so the thing is, what story am I telling here? Why am I creating this? What's going on with that? And the thing that came from that is that life is made harder for me than other people. That's interesting. And I kind of sat with that for a while and go, why would that be? Obviously it's not. So what would that thing? And that led me to, so what benefit would I get out of that? What would, obviously there's some sort of, not necessarily pleasure, but a benefit that someone would get, that I would get out of having the thought that life is made harder for me. And then creating that in my life. And then looking for examples of that to back up that. And, then it becomes has its own momentum. And what came to me was that the reason I would have that is because it gives me an excuse for not having succeeded in things I want. So it's not that I haven't succeeded or that I'm not good enough. It's that it's harder for me. So that if I put in equals amount of effort as I think, as someone else's, they will be more successful because it's harder for me. And so that was interesting. And I went, coming again from the point of that, I don't think that it's true, but I have this thought and I create this pattern in my life. So again, what do I get out of that? Thinking that it's right. So I have an excuse now for not being successful because life is harder for me. And then keep going through all of that and still trying to unpack most of this. It's not all fully clear to me as well. Is then the idea, and it all comes down, and this is obviously the horrible, embarrassing, crappy ideas that are embedded deep within me, is this idea of being at the back of my mind, like I don't know exactly. I can't put a word on it. So there's going to be loads of words around, but it's like being the chosen one, or being special, or being great, or it's like if I do, say, when I took up photography and I started entering stuff into competitions, and maybe some didn't do well, and it's not a case that necessarily all the time, because sometimes it's not a case that I'm not good enough. It's that there's this thought in the back of my mind that they just don't recognize my greatness. And there's sort of like if you have a thought and I have a thought that I am on some level the chosen one, or great, or talented, or I have that I have this great destiny or something like that embedded in my mind somewhere, and then that's not reflected in the world, there's going to be the cognizant dissonance, that word that I can't pronounce at the minute. Because obviously the thing that I'm trying to avoid is that I'm not that good, or I'm not that talented, or I'm not that I'm not chosen, or I'm not great, or whatever. That's obviously the thing that I am avoiding, or I'm trying to stay away from, or not see. So then I've all these things. Well, obviously I'm the chosen one. So why isn't that reflected in life? Well, it's not reflected in life because life has been made harder for me by some sort of malicious influence. Almost feels like a demon poking at me or whatever. It's harder for me. It's easier for other people. And then you can go, well, it's harder for me because I've always had a problem with my weight. It's harder for me because of my family. It's harder for me because of I wasn't given the opportunities. It's harder for me because people are selfish and they don't give me enough credit for what I do, or they're too busy about themselves, and all these things, avoiding the big truth, or possible truth, more than likely truth, that I'm just not that good. And it's like, it's absurd when you see it and you talk about it and you come out and go, well, of course you're not the chosen one. Of course you're not the greatest thing. And of course that any of these things that make you have these feelings. But there's this core thing in the back of my mind that's kind of it. And that, so it's, the world hasn't recognized me, or in any situation that it's an external problem rather than my problem. And a good example of this would be the whole entire time that I was trying to be a rock star, playing guitar and stuff like that. And then towards the end, when I was the sound engineer and I was kind of filling in for guitar as well in the band, my whole thing was, oh, this would be great. I will end up being the guitar player in this band, and I can move out of being a sound engineer and move into guitar playing full time, and this would be great. And I didn't get that job, and it went to someone else. And there was a thought in the back of my mind, again, this cognitive dissonance, that, well, what's going on? And it felt like the world was against me, and I was being held back, and I was being pushed down and oppressed. And an oppression is a feeling I felt an awful lot, even in a physical fields, and especially when like that anger thing when it's surrounded, and the tea bag is falling on the ground, and you lift the cup and it smashes, or you put something on a shelf and it knocks 20 other things. That thing that feels like an actual physical force, and it's how people describe the Saturn energy or whatever. When people talk about Saturn, it is that kind of feeling, if you wanted to talk to it in that way. So all of this thing came to me like, so it's obviously the world is unfair, all of that kind of thing. The long and short of the fact of why I didn't get the job as a guitar player is I wasn't a good enough guitar player to get that job. And that's not easy for me to say, because I've spent thousands and thousands and thousands of hours playing guitar, and I've I thought this was going to be it. This was, I was going to be the guitar player. I was going to be the greatest guitar player in the world. And essentially, as much work as I did put into it and practice and all that, I didn't put in the work to be the greatest guitar player in the world. Steve Vai is one of the technical, most proficient guitar players in the world because he spent 10 hours a day, every day, for 20 years playing guitar. Whereas in the back of in my mind, it was, well, but I'm the chosen one. So I'm going to get there as soon as the world recognizes me. And it kind of made me, as much as I had a drive and an ambition and stuff like that, there was that at the back of your mind that, well, you're the chosen one, you're the greatest, all this kind of thing. And I got lazy with it. And looking back then at the thing, I can see that's the guitar playing or whatever. And it just wasn't, I definitely could have been an awful lot more prepared than I was. And I was just trying to coasting it on because I said, this is just what's going to happen. This is my trajectory. This is how my life goes because I'm the chosen one. Now, I'm not consciously aware of that. I would never have called myself the chosen one, and it still feels a bit weird now, but it's just that kind of thing in the back of your mind. But of course, like deep buried, like an insidious thought, like an inception thought that Cobb would put in, just thing that you're the chosen one. And it's not exactly that, but it's close to that. And then again with the comics and stuff like that, and the thing I've talked about before is that because you're told to follow your bliss, and you're told that when you go with your bliss or whatever your thing, the power and the weight of the universe comes behind you and it all opens all these things or whatever. Whereas that may be very true for some people, it's certainly not true for me. In that I definitely followed my bliss. I was super honest and expressed myself in the best possible way, particularly in that comic I did called Them, which is on the website. You can buy it on Amazon, but I do a whole breakdown on the website. I'll put it in the show notes about it. I'm very honest and open and the most me I could possibly be. And then when it was releasing, no one cared. And it was devastating. And I felt that the world just, again, this whole thing didn't recognize. I did everything right. Here's my thing. Where's the universe has my back, whatever. And never, out of all of that I ever think for a second. Well, I'm sure I did think about it, but the majority of my thoughts was never, maybe it's just not that good of a comic. Maybe just people aren't that interested in it. And it comes from that whole thing, Riggs and Isabel. If you can hear, I'm not sure if you can hear that, but it comes from that whole thing of at the back of your mind thinking that you deserve more because of who you are rather than what you've done. This privilege thing I've talked about that on probably not in this podcast. I know I've definitely talked about it in other podcasts, on other people's podcasts, and it's like this privilege. But I've done my thing. The universe is meant to have my back now. I meant that it's to book them and they will come. And when you book them and they don't come, and then you get shitty with the universe and you shake your fist at God and you think the world's out to get you, and you start creating this kind of weird, oppressive thing around you to justify why you're in a world and the outer world aren't synchronized together. Why you're not seeing who you are and the way you should be recognized. Why, when the world isn't reflecting that back, and for you to be able to justify that, then you have to change the world, in your own image, and have to see it as an oppressive. Not you. I'm talking about me. I had to see it as an oppressive, almost malicious. I never went so far as to think that there was actually some sort of malicious demon or thing, but it certainly was the best description I had of it. And of course I know it was on me. And of course I know it was me looking for things. And when I am in bad form, things do break around me. Like that's always happened. And when I'm any sort of intense emotion or energy, that happens. There's no exclamation. There's a bit of a woo-woo thing going on there, but I certainly add to it by looking for more excuses or more things to add to my chain of evidence to prove that the world is out to get me. All because I've been avoiding or not wanting to see the fact that maybe, just maybe, brackets, more than likely, I'm not as great as I think I am. And I'm not guaranteed the success or the talent or whatever it is that I think I am by having the base thought buried deep within my mind that I'm the chosen one. In so many words. And that's great to know. It's like all other things, like I've talked before about the victim thing, and when I see it and all that, and I thought, oh well, that's my victim thing sorted. And then there's another layer, and you go, oh look, there thing, and I'm sure there's another layer to this because I have to work out now why or where did that come from that I thought I was, there was some sort of chosenness to me or something like that. And maybe it's something that is a core of all people, that we all have that as part of evolution, that you have to feel that. I don't know. I doubt it. I don't think everyone necessarily has that thought. And that has going to play out in other ways as well, because I've probably separated myself from other people. I've probably not let myself, probably not challenged myself enough in certain ways. I certainly haven't challenged myself in the way I have with photography in other areas of my life. I haven't done it with my art, and like I never entered any competitions. Never. I did one portfolio review for my comics. I didn't. Not that I didn't like it. I thought it was very fair, but I was going like, well, I already know what people are going to say about my art, and if I disagree with them, because I do have issues with it. It's going into a whole different thing about art, but I do have issues about. I've talked before about different panels, comics, all that aside. Drinky drink. There certainly has to be some other knock-on effects of having this core belief within me that I've now exposed and have to look at. And I have to look at where that come from and why I have it. And what it is making up for, or what it is trying to hide, or what it is pointing, it's like these are signposts pointing away from what you actually like. I have a thought that I'm the chosen one because more than likely my big fear is that I'm not, that I'm here all alone, insignificant, of no, by chance, by accident, alone in an uncaring universe, surrounded by nothing but decay and, entropy and sadness, depression, and death. Probably can understand part of your brain going, we can have that, we can have all of this, or we can go, well, maybe you're the chosen one, maybe you've something that other people, maybe there's a secret in you that means you're immune to the horribleness of existence. Maybe that's it. It's probably going to be something along those lines. But maybe there's a few steps in between the bleak darkness of an uncaring universe and the chosen one that I have to till I actually find what is the thing. So it's good, definitely good. The Servitor and the Journey, month one has been very hard for me, and I've been very down and very, that word that I think I pronounced right, ennui, that sense of ennui, that of lackluster, of not caring, of just focusing on the negative or not being able to get out of that mood, and like even surrounded by wonderful happiness and things I want, and just having this hole in my heart, and to realize front and center that it's me, like this entire, like that thing Dexter talks about is dark passenger, and it led him to murder, and I did feel like it had a dark passenger, but the dark passenger is me, and it's me not being honest with myself, and it's me thinking I'm better than I am, or me not necessarily better than I am, because that sounds like, oh poor me again, victim thing. I think anyone can be as good as they want to be to a certain extent. I'm never going to, be the fastest runner in the world or anything, but there's potential, this chaos thing of we have all this potential or whatever. And because of this thought of the chosen one, or whatever it is, that actual core thought, where it may have saved me in a large extent from darker places, it probably curbed my potential in that I didn't strive as hard, because ultimately there was a thought in me that thought I was going to get there anyway, because I'm the chosen one. So yeah, lots to deal with, and lots to think about, and all of that goodness, and this is what I signed up for. This is what the whole thing is about, and it's better to know it and to be embarrassed by it than not to know it. Like, I'm 40 and I didn't know I had this. Part of me always knew I had this. But when you write it down, when you articulate it, and when you talk about it, and when you mention it on a podcast, and then it becomes real, and then you have to deal with it. So, yeah. So that was your boy, Tommy Kelly. That was a Tommy Kelly podcast. And talking an awful lot about the journey, and there's probably going to be more about the journey as the year goes on, because it's a huge thing. In the same way that I talked an awful lot about the weight loss and exercise and all that stuff last year. It's what I'm working on, so there will be a lot of talk, and I will kind of be a bit more cryptic about it as well, because I want it to be a closed system for the time. But if you want in on it, you can join at any time. All the stuff is always there, and there's the Facebook group, and there's a great bunch of people doing it. We check in with each other every day, and everyone tries to help everyone out, and everyone's in the same boat. And people have been pretty honest and open about, you know, their feelings and what they're doing, and it's a nice place. It's a tough work, but it's with nice people. And it's, as I say, it's part of the Patreon. You're not signing up to do the journey, and I stress that, because it's not a subscription service. It's not, you know, it's not. You're not joining Headspace. You know, there's no app with this. It's nothing. It's just as part of something I am doing this year, and I thought I'd open it up to everyone else, see if they wanted to do it as part of the rewards, to try and give something back to the community who support me. And boy, did they support me. You know, like it's every month to send money to me, and it makes me able to do this. It makes me be able to pay for podcast hosting, for web hosting, for camera lenses, for, you know, it pays for Photoshop, it pays for Lightroom, it pays for Premiere, it pays for all of these things. It allows me to do all these things, and I'm extremely grateful. So if you want to get in on that, or if you just want to support and help me out a bit or whatever, you can go to tommykelly.com, and it's TOMMIE, and that brings you straight to the Patreon, and you can see the different words. Like, there's books there, all my comics are there. You get the deck, the digital deck to download, and you can print yourself. The grimoire, the only way you can get the PDF of the grimoire is in that. There's a whole host of other things. There's loads of previews of. You get all the podcast first, you get the videos first, you get the blog post first. There's loads of artwork behind the scenes, loads of stuff that is not available anywhere else other than on the Patreon. And I'm going to be getting into this thing. They've brought in a thing called a Lens, where you can upload videos that only last 24 hours that will just be exclusive for Patreon people. You know, just simple things of, you know, when I'm doing the journey and meditating, and we might do other stuff. But check that out if you want. If you don't want, and you still want to find out more about the whole thing, or the podcast, or the 47s, or whatever it is, you can go to adventuresinwoowoo.com, and there has everything about the Four Devils, the 47s. There's a magic primer. There's the all the podcasts. There's the YouTube links, all to YouTube. All my art's over there. Well, not all my art. I have to start building up some portfolio pages over there. All the photography stuff is over there. All of those things. So, yeah. So, find me on Facebook. Find me on Twitter. Find me on Instagram. Find me on Flickr. Find me on 500px. I'm sure I'm on a social. I'm not on Snapchat because I don't know anything about it. And I'm sure there's some other social medias I'm not on. But for the most part, I'm on the social media. So come find me. Come hang out. Come say hello. Join the 47s Facebook group. Nice bunch of people. One of the best bunches of people I've come across is particularly in the toxic world of social media. It is the least, by far, toxic section of the internet I have found. So yeah, good people of the internet. May you have a wonderful, wonderful week. May all your wishes come true in a way that teaches you to have better wishes. Is that good? If it's not good, then I extend a huge hug to you, and may you be well.